And for the sake of the recording, it is Friday, the 20th of November. It is 11 o'clock. This is RCBC BUA 205-101. And my name is Mike Willman. So it's nice to, whoa, we just lost somebody. And now we get somebody else. Gene. Not sure who Gene is. Anyway, first thing, we are like a few weeks away from the end of the semester. So an opportunity for you to ask any questions, talk about whatever you want to talk about that might be on your mind before I discuss with you what's on my mind. So, Abby, let me start with you. Anything in particular that is of concern to you or that you want to know about, or we need to? Okay. I didn't look at the total scores you guys have because I didn't know who would be on the call. Are you good to go on getting your work done, Ab?
Yeah, I have everything in, but Blackboard, it just doesn't have like the assignment grades. Is that normal?
Yeah, because I have to put those in manually, so don't worry about it.
Yeah,
It'll be fine. Okay, so Maya, you're next.
I emailed assignment 1 and assignment 3, but I don't know if I sent it to the correct email because it keeps giving me the email wasn't delivered. Okay,
let's make it easy. Send it to my business email. I'll give it to you right now. It's also all over the syllabus and all the other papers I've given you, but it's my name, Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, no space, no period, W-I-L-L-M-A-N-N, 2 L's, 2 N's.
Okay.
At WMSH.com, which either stands for Willman, Meyer, Schottland, Hiller, or we make shit happen. You can decide which amuses you more. All right. Okay. So you will send me 1 and 3 again, Maya. All right. Next on my list here, Bianca. Let me find you.
You hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Are you up to date? Are you where you need to be?
I know I have from not this week, but not last week that just passed, but the week before that, I have some assignments that I have to turn in, like the work for the, I guess the Connect work, but all the writing assignments I turned in. Okay,
so here's the deal, guys. On the Smart Book or Learn Smart or Connect, whatever you want to call it, if you go in, let's say I'll pick Abby because I think she already did it. Let's say you haven't done the quiz for chapter 2. If you go in and you try to do it late, if it stops you from getting a score, sometimes, I don't remember how I set this up to tell you the truth. Sometimes it allows you to sort of do a practice exam, but it won't accept your score. If you just tell me that you have done a certain, past due assignment, I will go in and change the score manually. All right. So my message is, if you are going to do the work, I appreciate the effort. And if that means that we have to go back and fix up Blackboard or whatever, I will do that. Just do it and let me know. All right. So anything else for you, Bianca, that you are concerned about?
No, everything is fine.
All right. Ivana, how are you? Good morning. Ivana, turn on your microphone. Yo, Ivana.
Hi, yes, sorry, I have bad internet in some parts of the apartment.
Don't worry about it. Nice family.
Can you hear me?
I can, and I can see your family picture. Very nice looking family. I wish I had them in class.
Hello.
Of you. Just teasing. Anything you want to talk about? Are you up to date on your work?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, sorry. The internet's shoddy here.
All right.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I asked you if you were up to date on your work or if there's anything that you wanted to discuss with respect to.
I believe I am completely caught up except for some connects.
Okay.
But besides that, yeah.
All right. So did you hear what I said about that? Go back and
Yes.
if you have the time and if you have the inclination, my goal is I can reward achievement. Let's say Abby's brilliant. She's a pain in the butt, but let's say she's brilliant. She has all, perfect scores, great papers and all that. She's fine. Let's say, just for the sake of the argument, hypothetically, Ivana, let's say you're not as brilliant as Abby, but you try, you're good. I can reward effort as well. So people who make the effort,
Yes.
I want to be flexible. I want to bend over backward to try to make this work.
Yeah, thank you. I am trying.
Good. That's all we need to do. All right. So did I miss anybody? I got Ivana, I got Abby, I got Bianca, I got Maya. Jean, what is your last name? Is it Jean Dorville?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. So first of all, I didn't realize that Jean was a guy. So should I be saying Jean or I don't know. Anyway.
No, Jean is good. Jean is good.
All right. So Jean, same question I put to everybody else on the call. Anything that in terms of, I wish I'd known who was going to be on the call. I would have looked up your current scores. In fact, maybe I'll do that at the end of this meeting.
Wait.
See where we are.
So yeah, if you're extremely late on a assignment, if you turn it in, would you still get graded?
You turn it in, it'll still get graded. If you turn it in late, in good conscience, I can't give you the same score I would give to somebody who turned it in on time.
Yes, of
But
course.
I will certainly make sure that your effort is rewarded. So yes, the answer is yes, turn it in. People who don't
Thank
turn
you.
stuff in are the people who are going to have a problem in this class. If you turn it in, if you try, even if I think, look, there's no, people go to law school for 3 years to basically be exposed to the kinds of stuff that I've tried to expose you to in this class. I don't expect your thinking process to necessarily take into account all the subtleties of the legal system. What I expect is that you will try. I think this is a tough course to take. I don't know whether you guys took it because you have to for your major or whatever.
Yeah.
I've practiced law for over 40 years, and there are things that I still think are difficult to absorb. I'm trying to make sure that you have an exposure to the broad brush of how the legal system operates so that you're not in a position somewhere down the road in your careers, whether they're business careers or other careers, where the whole legal thing scares you. I don't want you to think that lawyers are smarter or know more than you do in some business context. Yes, they have knowledge, but if you understand how the system works, you can make that a level playing field. And I don't want you to be put off by that. It's like every other academic subject. It has its own vocabulary. Once you get past the vocabulary, so who the hell knows what a tort is? I'm going to guess if I asked I'll ask it. Do any of you know what a tort is?
Yes.
I remember studying it. Yeah.
That's not the same thing as knowing, Gene. All right, so Ivana, you said you know what a tort is?
A tort is not necessarily a crime, but injustice is maybe not the correct word, but it's a injustice on somebody that they can pursue, get some kind of retribution for.
Okay.
A wrong.
That's fair. The easier way to say would be there are two kinds of wrongs. Those that are punishable by law, those are crimes. So think back to the O.J. Simpson case, which you all were probably not even alive for, but you probably read about it. So O.J. was accused of killing his former wife and her boyfriend. He was tried and he was acquitted of the criminal charges. The families of the two people who were dead then sued him in a civil case, not a criminal case. So it was no longer the state of California versus O.J. Simpson. It was, I forget the family's name. So we'll say it was Chester and Beeks versus Simpson. And there's a different standard of proof, but they were alleging a tort, a civil wrong, not a criminal wrong. So it's the state, whether it's the United States of America or New Jersey or California, that pursues retribution, to use your word, Ivana, against people accused of crime, who are always presumed innocent. In a civil case, OJ lost, and the two families got millions of dollars in awards, which they never collected because essentially OJ went bankrupt. But it's a different standard of proof. But just understanding, just the fact that you could understand there are two, you could do this for the same thing. You can be charged with a crime, and in OJ's case, be acquitted. And then subsequently in a civil case, you could lose. And there's a different standard of proof and blah, 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 blah. But so there we have the word tort. Well, that's a dumb word. Some people think it's a kind of a pastry, which is actually a tort with an E on the end. But all right. So you weren't amused by that. I was hoping that you would smile, those of whose faces I can see. So if you're going to be mean, just because it's the morning on a Friday, you know, the hell with you all. All right?
No, we're just hungry.
Hungry. Okay. Well, I'll try not to keep you from your lunches. All right. So I think I've asked everybody if there's something on your mind. If there's something you want to talk about that you don't necessarily want to talk about in front of other people, even on a Zoom call, if you let me know, I'll be happy to have a private phone call, a private Zoom call, whatever you need to deal with whatever questions you have. But make sure that if you are submitting stuff late, you let me know, so that number one, if it's like a paper, I look for it. But if it's something you've gone back in Learn Smart or SmartBook or Connect, whatever the hell we call it these days, that you've done, make sure I know so I can go and check that if the grade did not migrate into Blackboard, that I put it in manually. Last thing in the world we want is for you to do something and not get credit for it. Okay? I was hoping somebody would comment on my backdrop. I mean, you know, it's not every day I get to go to the White House and be in the briefing room to talk to you guys. So I was hoping that that was going to provoke some kind of reaction, but I guess you're just all pointing at lunch, so whatever. All right. Anything else on your minds?
No, Mr. President. That's it.
I had a question about the Connect assignment for this week.
Sure.
And on the syllabus, it says we have a chapter due, but then last time I checked Connect, it wasn't on there. Or like it said it like wasn't due, and I couldn't find it.
I'll go check when we're done, Abby. But if it's not there, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Here's the deal, guys. If let's say I wanted it to be there and I didn't put it there, I would never penalize you for something that I did that was a mistake, or I won't penalize you because of some technological imperfection. All right? You guys just, in good faith, do the work and we're good to go. We don't know each other in any personal way, but that's the absolute truth. So I will check, but if it doesn't appear there, you're not on the hook for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the final paper. Do we have any questions about that? Who has looked at the final paper assignment?
Is the final paper graded as the exam or the final exam?
There is no final exam. I don't know who was asking that. Who was that?
It was me, Bianca.
Bianca. No, there is no final exam, just a paper. Let me see if I can pull up Blackboard. It may take me a minute, so hang on. Are you guys in a position where your usual Thanksgiving plans have been changed because of the pandemic?
Yes,
Who said yes?
Ivana.
So how has it changed, Ivana?
Well, we usually house hop because I have such a big family, and now I don't think we're doing anything at all. I think we're just gonna cook at home and be all by ourselves.
What time should I come over? What time is dinner?
I don't know. It doesn't start till when everything's done. It's always different.
Well, that's just your way of avoiding inviting me over, not having a bona fide
Thanksgiving.
start. I can come and watch football while the food is cooking. All right. So let's see. Final paper due December 13th. All right. So this is a longer assignment with more points at stake. So what I want you to do, and the reason I wanted to get anybody who wanted to listen on Zoom was, this is not a paper with a right answer. This is not a paper where you go on Google and you say, you know, what are the weaknesses in the American system of jurisprudence? You could do that, and you would probably get a lot of different, you know, organic responses from people who've written articles about it and all of that, which is fine. I'm assuming that after, you know, well, 12 weeks of this, you have some sense of what you think is good and bad about how the justice system in this country operates, not just the criminal justice system, but the entire legal system. So let me give you an example. If you are charged with a crime in the United States, you are presumed innocent. You've all heard that in some TV show, the presumption of innocence, okay? What does that mean? It means that we would rather have people who are guilty go free than have anybody who is not guilty be convicted and lose their freedom or their money or any other aspect of, you know, their existence. So by creating a non-level playing field, we're saying it's up to the state, whether it's the United States or a particular state, to prove that Abby Chester did what she was charged with doing. Abby doesn't have to prove anything. She can just sit there, her lawyer can just sit there, and it's up to the prosecutor to prove that she did whatever she's accused of. And that prosecutor has to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the rule. That's hard to do. I was a prosecutor in Philadelphia. I enjoyed the job, and you can do it, but it's not a level playing field. If you can see my hands, it's tilted, but it's tilted deliberately. So you could say, oh, I don't like the idea of people who are obviously guilty, whatever obviously means, going free because the burden of proof on the prosecutor was too great. That could be a dissatisfaction on your part with the system. I would argue against you, but the point is not what I think. The point is, do you understand the system, and can you explain what you perceive to be its weaknesses? So let's go back to the O.J. Simpson case, which I was using as an example earlier. So Simpson does not get convicted. The state of California cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he killed his wife and her boyfriend. So then the two families of the dead people in what is called a wrongful death action, well, I'll stick with you, Abby, since I'm using you as an example. Let's say Abby's married, and she's in an auto accident, which is not her fault. So she can sue in a civil court for the damages to her car, for the damages to her body, her medical bills. She can sue for the pain and suffering that she underwent because of, you know, whatever happened to her body in the accident. But if she dies, her spouse can sue because he lost his wife, because he lost financially. She was, you know, a breadwinner in the family, but he also lost in terms of companionship and all that other stuff. You can even sue, if you want to sort of reduce this a little bit to something that might make you smile, you can also sue in that case for what is called loss of consortium, meaning he no longer had a spouse with whom he could have sexual relations. So that can be compensable in a civil action, all right?
That's gross.
No, it's not gross. Who said it's gross? Is that you, Ivana? No, think about it. I don't know.
I get it, but that's like putting a price on how many times you can do it for the rest of your life. Even if you're married, that's weird.
But isn't that one of the benefits of being married? I mean, there are a whole range of benefits, emotional and physical. And all we're saying is that if you take away somebody who is in that situation, if Abby's husband in this case, you know, has lost Abby, he no longer has any of the things she provided, any of the reasons that he wanted to be married to her, they're gone. which includes, if we're being, adult about this, the whatever, physically intimate relationship they had. And yes, it seems a little weird to put a price tag on it, but what juries do is say, oh, they were young, they had a whole life ahead of them, or they had not yet had children. So now Abby's husband is, lamenting the fact that the family that they wanted to have never came to be. If I were in that case, some old guy, they would say, okay, loss of consortium, a penny.
Oh,
Maybe 2 pennies, who knows? But I think it just tries to take into account the reality and the totality of what people lose in situations
yeah.
like that. So, but what you need to understand, what I would like you to understand, is that while you had to prove OJ or the person who hit Abby, if that person were charged in a criminal case for drunken driving or whatever, beyond a reasonable doubt, when you get in a civil court, the burden of proof changes. Remember, it works this way. People don't just go to court. Somebody has to start it. In a criminal case, it's the state. The state says, Mike, you committed a crime. We're going to prove you did. And so they take me to court. I don't have to do anything. I have to hope that they don't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. If I'm the one who hit Abby and Abby's putative husband sues, all he has to do is prove by what is called a preponderance of the evidence. It's a different standard. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. If you try to make it into an arithmetic formula, beyond a reasonable doubt might be 95, 99% sure you're guilty. Preponderance of the evidence, this means it's almost like 51-49. It sounds like a presidential election. You got to do a little bit more to prove you're right. You don't have to prove it perfectly. And to the extent you don't prove it perfectly, juries typically say, okay, we're not real sure here, but we're going to give Abby's husband, let's say he was asking for $1 million. And they're saying, okay, what they will do is they'll make an accommodation in their minds and say, not so sure that it was overwhelming proof, so let's give him $500,000. Juries use common sense. And one of the things I can't convey to you without taking you into a courtroom is that we have all these rules and judges do whatever the hell they want to do. And juries do whatever the hell they want to do. So judges are supposed to follow certain legal statutes, precedents, and by and large they do. But let me give you an example from the US Supreme Court. You all have heard of Obamacare, right? So it was the somewhat universal healthcare system that was put in place when Barack Obama was president. So it was challenged in court, goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upholds the law, says it's okay, it's constitutional. And what happened was one of the conservative justices, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, made up a reason to vote with the liberals who were expected to support Obamacare from a legal point of view. So the two parties had argued in court, and Roberts gave as the reason for his decision something that neither party argued. Don't want to go into what the legal subtleties are, but people said he did it because he thought it would be so disruptive to the country to take away Obamacare once it had been in place for a couple of years. And there are all kinds of subtleties to this. But what I didn't want you to think was that I was saying all judges are venal and they're just, doing stuff because they, they're stupid or they're taking bribes or whatever. There's a little bit of stupidity, a little bit of bribery everywhere. But in that case, most people would concede that Roberts made a decision for the good of the country in his mind, but it probably wasn't justified by the legal arguments that have been presented. All right, juries use their common sense. And if any of you ever end up going to law school and practicing law, I hope you become litigators, because it's like the highest form of combat. You have 12 people. It's like talking to you guys. You're all bored. You don't care. You're sitting there. So think about a jury in a courtroom, day after day after day. Every once in a while, there's something that happens and the jury perks up. But mostly they're like, why the hell am I here? Why did I ever get on a jury? Why didn't I, lie and say that, I have some terrible disease and, I should be excused from jury duty. And then, the judge tells them what the law is, and then they go and talk about it. And if this had been a normal business law class, I would have shown you a movie called 12 Angry Men, which is a drama which kind of shows how people argue in a jury room and what the back and forth is. And I think it's instructive. Again, not because I want you to absorb all the legal subtleties. I want you to have a sense of how the system operates. That's what I think this class should do for you. To the extent that you absorb a lot of particular details about intellectual property law or real property law, or whatever, that's great. If you just come out of here knowing how to think about legal issues, I would be happy. All right, so that was all a long diversion, a tangent off the basic idea of what could you find to be a weakness. I would think that based on all of the reaction to some of the more widely publicized cases of, I'll call it alleged police abuse, since there hasn't been any trial yet, what we basically call the incidents that have been focused on in the Black Lives Matter movement, you could say that the American system of justice is racist. So it's not enough in this paper just to say that. You would have to tell me why. So if you found that there are disparities, for example, in the percentage of people who are charged with crime based on what appears to be race, what would you have to do then? You'd have to say, okay, let's just make this up. Let's say that more people who are green get arrested than people who are purple. Okay, why is that? Is it because we have a bias against green people? Is it because green people are typically more socioeconomically disadvantaged, and therefore typically there is more crime in communities where those people live? Is it because the purple people are the people in charge, so the police don't arrest them at the same rate as they arrest green people? Just think about whatever it is. I don't want to suggest to you what issues you should look at. The death penalty is an easy one, because it does seem that the death penalty is disproportionately a penalty that is applied to people of color. I think an easy one is, should we have a situation where we're more willing to let guilty people go free just to make sure some people who are innocent don't get convicted and lose their liberty or lose their lives? I'm not sure, do any of you want to even try out something you think is a problem? And we'll just have a brief discussion. Since you're on the call, I would like to reward you by giving you sort of a leg up. So if you have something on your mind, tell me and I'll try to give you a quick reaction.
Maybe sentencing.
What about it?
Just like the disproportion of like who gets sentenced longer or who gets off with like potential parole and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing, because two people can commit the same exact crime and get completely different punishments.
That's absolutely true. And it is a weakness. And it's a weakness based on the fact that different judges and different juries are involved in those two cases. So we have, person A and person B, they allegedly they've been accused of and have been convicted of the same crime. One of the ways the system has been revised to try to deal with that are called sentencing guidelines. So you have a real hard-ass judge who wants to throw the book at somebody, and you have somebody who has a more, I guess we'll call it lenient approach to what ought to happen. And so guidelines say you can't sentence this person in this particular instance to more than this number of years in prison, and the minimum is this. I think it's a good point. It's an easy one to argue because there's absolute truth to it. But another aspect of that would be plea bargaining. Do you know what plea bargaining is, guys?
Yeah.
You're charged with a crime. And typically what I would, as a prosecutor would do, would be charge you with everything I can think of that flows from whatever bad thing you did. And what does that do? It gives me a bunch of charges I can drop if you plead guilty. So your lawyer says to you, you know, are you guilty? And trust me, almost every defendant says to his defense attorney or her defense attorney, I didn't do it. This is called the SODI defense. Some other dude did it, SODDI. All right, so I didn't do it. I don't know why they're charging me. So then the lawyer says, well, they seem to have a lot of evidence, so they're offering us a deal. If you go to trial and are convicted, you could get 5 to 10 years in prison. They're offering us 1 year. And the person says, well, I didn't do it. So why should I go to jail for a year? If that's true, it's a good thing to say. The question is, can you prove it, or can you stop the prosecution from proving you did it in court? But if you did do it, then you say, just a year. Now, just doesn't seem like to be a word to go with a year in jail, but it's certainly, if you juxtapose it with 5 to 10 years, it seems like a good deal. So basically we're saying, because you're going to save us the trouble of having to try you and possibly losing, we're going to make a deal. We're going to give you a lower sentence. So is that good? Is that bad? 95% of the cases in a big city like Philadelphia are plea bargained. There's not a trial. If everybody went to trial, the system would grind to a halt. There are thousands of cases that are plea bargained every week. And if those all had to be tried, it would be chaotic. But it's a weakness in the system. So sentencing is a good thing. What else, guys? Anything?
Well, I was thinking like more specifically, like if for a really specific example, Brock Turner got 3 months for rape, but then someone who's murdered would get a whole different. I think that's what, like, because I understand all of what you just said applies to that as well, but it's just like.
I agree.
Well, wouldn't it be like two different things, because it's rape and murder, and sometimes for rape it is a little bit harder for, like, some people actually don't even go all the way through with rape cases, and then
Yeah, because it's harder to convict.
Sometimes it's not enough evidence. So with murder it's a little bit different because it is two different charges.
Rape is a more difficult case to win for a prosecutor. Think about the problems of one-on-one. A woman is raped, but there's nobody around. And so what is the defendant going to say? It was consensual. Yes, we had sexual relations. That's why you found, sperm when you did your rape kit and all of that. But, now, if the woman has suffered physical injuries at the same time, so to speak, she was beaten up during the rape, that certainly helps the prosecution. On the other hand, think about this. You have people who've been in a consensual sexual relationship for a period of time, boyfriend, girlfriend. And now, on some occasion, the woman decides that she does not want to have sexual relations at that particular point, or maybe ever again. But, it's the old no is no. But the guy is saying, we've been, having sexual relations for the last 6 months. Is she really saying no? And so he pushes the issue. And so eventually he has some kind of forcible sexual relations, or a sexual assault takes place. Think about what the jury thinks. It depends on how credible the woman is. It depends on whether the jury thinks that there really was a no. Is she just trying to make this guy's life miserable because he cheated on her? I mean, there are a million things that go through a jury's mind. And it's one of the imperfections of the system, because think about it from the guy's point of view. He can't prove that it was consensual. There's no videotape, there were no witnesses. So she's saying on that occasion, it was not consensual. That is rape. He's saying it was. And you can't prove a negative. He can't prove that there was not any statement by her saying that, you know, this was not something she wanted to consent to at that point in time. There are all kinds, in every criminal case, if you went to New York or Philadelphia or any big city today, there'd be hundreds of cases being tried in courtrooms. And in every one of those courtrooms, somebody is lying. Guaranteed. It's the mother who doesn't want her son convicted, and she says, he was at home watching TV with me that night. He wasn't at home watching TV with her, but you can understand the maternal instinct. Most of those people who lie are never charged with perjury. It's just not worth it. But just trust me that it's like your real life. You have friends who are less than truthful with you. You know it. You can sense it. That's what juries are supposed to do. Judges rule on the law. Judge says the law is, if you did X, that meets the definition of rape. Okay. Then the jury is supposed to be the finder of fact. Did in fact something happen that meets that definition? And as I said to you before, juries typically are very willing to use their common sense and ignore what the judge charged them to do. It's probably a good thing to have a bunch of people who are not all tied up in the legal subtleties, but then, you know, we have lots of cases where there are legal subtleties. Trying to think of some other things where you might want to think about it. Anybody else have something that you think might end up in your paper that you want to talk about briefly? I don't want to drag this out, but I do want to give you an opportunity to do a better job, again, since you were nice enough to be on the call. Ab, anything that you want to talk about with respect to your paper?
No, you covered a lot of what I'm putting in my paper.
Maya?
I have a question. For the movie 12 Angry Men, is it on Netflix?
I don't know. You can find it. You can find it on YouTube, because when I've shown it to my classes, I just went to YouTube and showed it directly from YouTube. Anything else, Mai? No. Gene, I know. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Everything's okay.
Maya, say what you were going to say. I didn't hear it.
Did you receive my email for assignment 1 and 3?
Say that again. I'm just having trouble literally hearing you.
Hello?
Yes, now I hear you. Go ahead.
Did you receive the email for assignment 1 and 3?
I don't know. I can't tell you
Okay.
right now. But do me a favor. Just send me a note when this is over.
Okay.
Check 1 and 3 for you, and I will check that, and I will get back to you and let you know. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, Gene, you said you're okay. You're just trying to get to lunch, right? Gene?
Correct.
Okay. Bianca? Anything, Bianca?
I want self-defense and charging minors as adults. Because I know that in certain cases, like I know for murder, they charge minors
Sure.
as adults, but some situations that it's like they're still under a certain age, they're on the cusp of,
Right.
or when they wait until the trial, so they wait to stall the trial so they can reach a certain age to trial them as an adult.
No, that what you just said doesn't happen, because you are, for legal purposes, the age at which you were arrested. So if I'm 16, the fact that my trial happens 3 years later does not mean that I will be charged as an adult. But the prosecutor is able, for basically from the age of 14 up, but more likely from 16 up to 18, ask the court, petition the court to have the person be tried as an adult. And it's just one of the ways that the system tries to, I guess, in the minds of the people who created this, the system tries to make it hard for bad people. So this was a really horrendous crime. It was it was committed by somebody who was 16. Everybody's outraged, and so we're going to try you as an adult, because if we try you as a juvenile, and juveniles are not found guilty, they are adjudicated delinquent. And that basically means they can be confined in an institution for juveniles till the age of 21. If you're charged as an adult and you're convicted, you can go to jail for a long, long time. It is a weakness because it's arbitrary. There are no set guidelines. So like the age is a set guideline. If you're 18 years or older, you are an adult for this purpose. Just like if you're 21, you're an adult in terms of drinking, or if you're a certain age, you can be drafted into the military, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that you have this wiggle room is probably a weakness. I think that would be a good thing to point out. And you can understand why somebody wants to do that. This was an outrageous crime. And the fact that this person is, 17 years and 350 days old should not mean that we can't, send him to jail forever or whatever. Or if it's a death penalty state, well, we can't put him to death. He deserves to die just because, he wasn't 5 days older and therefore, legally an adult. So that is a good one. I like that. What was the other one you had? You said two things. That was one.
Self-defense.
Oh.
I know New Jersey has the walk-away law, right?
Well,
or something.
Think about this. The basic premise of the statutes with respect to physical assault are that I have the right to be free from you intervening in my life in any way that hurts me. All right, you're not allowed to do that. You are allowed, however, to hurt me if you're in jeopardy. So I've attacked you. You're allowed to defend yourself. Now we get into the subtleties. I'm yelling at you in a bar. I'm drunk. And I say, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Do you have the right? Can you say, I was so fearful that he was going to beat the shit out of me. He had a beer glass in his hand or something, that you can do something physically to stop me? Or are you compelled to try to move away from that potential danger? Okay, so you're in a crowded bar. What was I supposed to do? Like elbow my way out past everybody so this drunken guy could not, attack me? I'm some drunken old guy at the bar. I can barely stand up. I say, oh, I'm gonna kick the shit out of you. I don't like you because you're purple and blah, blah, blah. Were you really feeling in jeopardy for your physical safety? It's a little bit different if I have my beer glass up and I'm like sort of waving it at you. It's way different if I pull a knife out and I'm a young guy and you feel that I could just reach across and stab you. Or I have a gun. So there are different levels of fear. An assault is putting somebody in fear of their lives. A battery is when you actually touch them. So I could be the guy holding the beer glass saying, I'm gonna kick the shit out of you, whatever. So that's an assault. But if I haven't touched you, it's not a battery. If I'm coming at you, if I'm this old guy, drunken old guy, I'm coming at you say you're with your boyfriend or your husband or whatever. I'm gonna kill you. I have my fists up like I'm gonna punch you, and I actually take a swing. I'm so old and pathetic that, it's almost like you could just blow on me and I'd fall over. That's different if I'm coming at you with a gun saying, I don't like purple people. I am going to kill you. So what do you get to do to defend yourself? Do you have to keep backing up? Do you have to walk away? Do you have the right to, as is the case in some states, stand your ground? You've heard that phrase that was made famous in a case in Florida. So yeah, anything where there is this discretion that is available to the parties that are doing it and available to the people who are going to decide whether it was a crime is pretty tricky. And so it's a good example. I would ask you to go one step further, which would really please me in terms of giving you an A+++++. What would you do about it? What would you do about disparities in sentencing? What would you do about trying teenagers as adults? What would you do about any of these things that we've talked about? What would you do about the death penalty? I don't know whether you guys are in favor of the death penalty or not. What are the basic arguments? There are two. One is retribution. You did a bad thing, we're going to punish you by taking your life. Is there any other? Is there any other reason for the death penalty? Just think about it. If you don't have the death penalty, what happens? People say, oh, it's a deterrent. It'll stop some people from committing crimes. When Abby goes to rob the bank tomorrow, she won't take a gun because she knows if she takes it and uses it, the penalty she's going to be subjected to is so much worse than the penalty for bank robbery. All right? There are statistics on both sides. I won't prejudice what you might write about that, but there is something, there are two arguments. One is the lighthouse argument. So why do we build a lighthouse on a rocky shore? To try to warn ships that there's a rocky shore and not to come close. Can we prove how many ships did not get wrecked on the rocky shore because of the lighthouse? No, we can't prove that, but we know intuitively that it helped to stop ships from ending up on the rocky shore. So can we prove that there are people who didn't commit murder because there was a death penalty? No. Do we think that there might be some? Yes. Enough to justify it? Who knows? The other thing, the other kind of deterrence, that's general deterrence. The other kind of deterrence is called specific deterrence. Abby is now charged with murder. She's convicted. She is sentenced to die and is executed. She, Abby Chester, will never kill anybody again. That is specific deterrence. She no longer exists. So why would that matter? Isn't that just being mean and vengeful after the fact? Well, it matters, for example, to prison guards. So Abby is now in prison and she's just one mean mother, all right? And so prison guards have to deal with her every day. And if she has nothing else to lose, she's in prison for life. Prison guards would say to you, there's nothing stopping her from trying to attack us. You know, she steals that spoon at dinner and she makes it into a knife, and she's just such a mean, nasty person. So, you know, we're walking down the hall, whatever, and, you know, there's nothing stopping her from attacking us, stabbing us, whatever, because there's nothing more we can do to her. That is basically, on my part, poorly phrased, but the idea of specific deterrence. Abby won't be killing anybody anymore because, in fact, we have killed her. You can argue whether people have the right to take somebody else's life in any circumstance. Why wouldn't we just sentence them to life in prison as opposed to putting them to death? There are all kinds of moral and ethical arguments you can make, all of which are fine in this paper. All I want you to do is, if you think you identify a weakness, not simply describe the weakness, but describe what the impact of that weakness is. And then, if possible, how you, if you had the magic wand, would change it. Okay? You with me here, guys? Nod your heads so I know that you're okay.
Yeah. So, like, how would you change the laws?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you see a problem, let's say you saw the problem to be that unqualified people get to be appointed as judges in a very political system. You could say, that I want judges to be appointed for life as they are in the federal judiciary. Supreme Court justices serve for life. Why is that? So that they won't necessarily feel that they will lose their jobs in the next election when people vote and say, oh, you were too lenient or you were too tough or whatever. So that is that status of being a judge for life was created to try to eliminate some of the pressures on judges. You could say it makes them into little dictators. They don't have to worry about what the people think anymore. They're just going to do whatever the hell they want for the next 30 years because they don't have to answer to anybody. Fortunately for you, there are lots of issues that are not simply, oh, that's obviously wrong and this is obviously right. There are arguments on both sides. All I'm asking you to do is if you see something you consider a weakness, to think about what reasons somebody would have for doing it the way it's done. The question is always why. Why do we have this law? Somebody thought we needed it. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's right. Think about all the laws we've changed. Once upon a time, people of the same sex could not get married. There are religions that oppose it. It was not the law in this country for more than 200 years, and now it is. It's just fine. Okay? Why did we change it? Most people would say there was a change in the cultural fabric of the country, and we have a different interpretation now of what should be acceptable in terms of marriage. All right? That's fine. There's still people, you know, fair-minded people and organizations, for example, the Catholic Church, that would say this is not right. You know, they make an argument based on biology and lots of other things. I don't care where you come out on the argument as long as you understand that there's almost always another side, or maybe 2 or 3 other sides. Let's say Abby thinks that the law about abortion, Abby is against abortion. I just keep thinking of you, Abby, because you're the only person who actually has a picture up that, you know, is moving. So Abby says, I'm against abortion. Okay. And somebody else says, no, I think that a woman's right to choose supersedes, you know, some case against abortion. Abby's against abortion because she believes life begins at conception. So therefore, to abort a fetus is to commit a murder. All right. Somebody else says, whatever the other argument is. You couldn't write that paper if you didn't take into account not just what Abby believes or the other people who believe in, you know, women's right to choose say, but the fact that the Supreme Court has actually ruled and said in Roe v. Wade, abortion in the first trimester, and I'm oversimplifying here, basically okay. Abortion in the last trimester, basically not okay. Abortion in the middle trimester, it depends. That's a typical reaction of the judiciary to a complex question. All right? It's almost never comes out to be, is it going to be black or white, purple or green? No. There's a whole lot of Solomon-esque decision-making. Remember Solomon said to the 2 women who were disputing that whose baby it was, slice the baby in half. And the mothers of the real mother of the baby said, no, no, don't do that, because she didn't want her child to be murdered. The woman who was lying didn't, you know, yell to King Solomon to not do that. So there are all kinds of things like this that happen. It's the real world. It's messy. It's not like go to chapter 7, read the 4th rule, and that's what it's going to be. This stuff changes. All of you except Jean on this call are women. You weren't allowed to vote until the 19th Amendment in 1920. What changed? Why do you get to vote now? Or why couldn't you vote before? So times change, people change, circumstances change, cultural imperatives change. So just have, I want you to have a sophisticated, open mind about whatever the issue is. I'm not trying to get you to change your opinion. Just understand that there are usually competing opinions. So if you ask why we have this rule, and you think it's good, somebody thinks it's bad. And if you think it's bad, somebody thinks it's good. And typically, because this is a republic, you know, the people in the majority get to make the rules. But they can't make the rules if those rules are just, Congress cannot vote to kill everybody who's named Abby. The courts would find that to be unconstitutional. Thanks, Abby. You know, hate to lose you. I'm sure you have a brilliant career ahead of you, but think about it. So just ask why and try to be as open-minded about it as possible. I'm going to guess that because you actually took the time to be on this call, you're going to do fine on this paper. If you have questions about it that come up after this call is over and you want to put them to me about particular ways you're looking at it or whatever it is, just send me a note, call me. We can have a Zoom call. We don't have to have a Zoom call. I mean, if it's just a phone call, I can say, no, Abby, you're full of shit here. You know, you got this all wrong. Or, Abby, that's a brilliant insight. I wish I had had that insight, but I'm going to take credit for you having it because I was your instructor. All right. Good to go, Ab?
Yes, thank you.
Good to go, Maya? Maya? Okay. Jean, I know it's 2 minutes to lunchtime, so we're going to be done so you can go have lunch. Bianca, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Ivana?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Send me a note about what time Thanksgiving dinner starts, will you?
Okay, I will, as soon as it's all ready.
All right, guys. Thank you for being on the call. I will post this for people who weren't on the call. I don't know that they will find it particularly instructive, probably not even find it very amusing, but we'll see. But good luck, and anything on your mind, just contact me and we will work it out. Okay?
Okay.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe, guys.
You too.
Thank you.